guys, welcome to my little paintbrush. My name is Miss Cami, and I'm really glad you're here today to paint with me. This painting means a lot to me. I love the message of it. I hope that you feel that way as you're painting it as well. And I hope that you can personalize it and make it your very own in whatever way that means to you. Before we get started, I want to go over a couple things that will help you to have a positive experience today while you're painting. The first is to remember that you can go at your very own pace. You don't need to keep up with me. If you need to pause, rewind, stop, whatever it is, go ahead and do that. I'm going to keep a steady pace, but remember I've been painting longer and you might need a little bit more time. That's totally fine, okay? So be sure to not rush yourself and take the time that you need. Second, it's really good to always remember that we're all different. Therefore, our paintings will be different, and they should be. We shouldn't be worried about creating the exact painting as the person we're watching. We should have freedom and be excited to make those choices to change our painting and make it ours. So don't stress out if it doesn't look exactly like mine. You want it to be your very own. All right, so let's just dive right in and get started. I'm going to start with my flat brush, okay? So just grab a flat brush, whatever you have around, and let's get right into our painting. I'm going to swish my brush a little bit into my water to loosen up the bristles. And remember that my paint, which is acrylic paint is what we're using today, it gets thirsty and it needs water. So remember to constantly be checking that and adding water to your brush as needed, okay? Before you start your painting, you can see I have the words "kindness begins with me" on my little banner that's going around the globe. These words mean a lot to me. It's a saying that I often remind myself and my children, okay? And they're the words that I chose to put here. But for you, I want you to write whatever makes sense to you and whatever phrase rings true to you as you're painting this. I would love to see the different phrases, so be sure to share those with us. But before you start, go ahead and take a pencil. It could be a colored pencil, it could be a graphite pencil, lead pencil. Just grab a pencil and write in there the words that mean something to you. If they're the same, awesome. I'm glad that we share the same inspiration. But if you're feeling something else, go ahead and do that. And get that in before we start painting so you have a reference later, okay? We're actually going to start with our banner. So I've got my flat brush here and it's nice and wet. I'm just going to load with some white paint. And I'm just going to gently wet the surface of my banner. Because we're using acrylic paint, we've got to blend wet into wet. And you see I can paint over my words because I used a graphite pencil. It's going to come through. So use something dark enough that you can kind of see it. You can even use a pen if you're confident in your writing. Maybe do it lightly with a pencil first and then do a pen so you know you can paint over it and still see those when it's time to fill in those letters. Okay, so basically we're using our white paint to gently wet our banner here. And once we have that in there, we're going to load with our white paint again, nice and generously, loosening it up a bit. You can see I went into my water a couple times, make sure it's nice and thin. And then I'm going to just barely dip the corner into some black paint. Okay, I'm going to take that little corner and I'm going to go around my entire banner. Okay, I'm going to start over here. And that little edge right there is going to follow the outline of my banner. Let's see if I can get a good angle here. If you need to flip your canvas around, go ahead and do that. It's no problem at all. Sometimes it's easier to flip it around and get a better angle. So just kind of follow it with that edge. And it creates kind of this nice shadow. Adds a little bit of dimension here and depth to our banner. We're going to do the same thing over here. Just kind of follow that around. If it gets too dark on you, you can just add more white to your brush. You just want to keep that brush following the edge there. That's your reference. Okay. You can see I kind of go over it a couple times if I need to. If your paint is not thin enough, you'll probably struggle to fill in the grooves of your canvas. So keep that in mind. Now we're going to do the same thing going around our banner. So anytime I need more paint on my brush, load with white, a little bit of black, and then we're just going to follow our banner now. So up, over, and around. Don't worry too much about your edges here. We can come back and clean it up. So we're just trying to get that main shadow in there. So we'll just keep going around here. Okay, you can always tell when your brush is too dry because you don't get a full stroke without the paint running off of it. So make sure again, you're constantly referring to your water for some help to thin out your paint. Especially if you're painting in a warm room or if you're painting outside. These are all things that are really going to affect how quickly your paint kind of seizes up on you. So make sure that you're really in tune to that and what's going on here around you. Okay, so we've got the shadow set in our banner. It's perfect, it's ready to go. We'll let that dry before we put our words in. We'll give our brush a nice little wash, and now we're going to go into our cute little faces. We've got 3 kids here that are kind of surrounding the globe. We're going to start with this little girl in the middle, okay? She's got the lightest skin tone, so I'm just going to take a little white and go over to my skin tone and add just that small touch of white to it, mostly for coverage. It'll help get some nice coverage on her. And then we're just going to fill this in. I'm still using my flat brush. You can definitely switch that up if you're feeling more comfortable with a smaller brush. But this flat one works really good for me. You can go to the toe of your brush to get in those tight little angles. And don't worry too much about getting paint in the hair because the hair is going to be darker than your skin tone. It'll cover it really well. So just do your best to stay within the lines, but if you get out of them, don't let that ruin your day. Painting is usually pretty forgiving. We can fix a lot of things. Okay, so that's our main center. Our little girl there. Okay, so as we go, we're just going to not worry about washing our brush. We're just going to darken our skin tones as we go. So we can keep our main skin tone color there, and we're just going to come into our brown a little bit. And we're going to go to our next skin tone, slightly darker with that brown, okay? And we're just going to kind of add that in there, mix it around until you feel comfortable with the skin tone that you're going for with our next little one. And remember that you can change these, different skin tones and on different little kids, no problem. But here's our next one. It's a little bit darker, you can see, than our first one, just by adding that little bit of brown. And we're just going to fill in this one here. Same concept. Don't stress too much if you get some of the paint in the hair. That's okay. We're going to be able to cover that up when we go to fill in the hair. So you just want to do your best. Use the toe of your brush, come around there, and just fill this in nice and generously. If you feel like you need 2 coats of paint, let this dry and put another one on there. It just really depends on how thick you're loading your brush, and it depends on how much white actually you've kept in your paint from when you did this first little girl here, because the white actually gives you the most coverage, and so that makes a difference. So we've got our second cute little kid in here. Before we move on though, before I do anything different with my brush, I'm going to keep that skin tone on there, and I'm going to go over to the brown and load it just a little bit with the brown, and I'm going to follow, kind of like we did on the banner, I'm going to follow the kind of outline of this little guy's face here. And this kind of just shadows it a little bit, and it helps it stand out, which is kind of fun to do. Again, if you start to notice your brush stroke is stopping on you too early, make sure you go and loosen up your bristles with some water. Come around here. You can see all the different values are coming off my brush. I have so many here from not washing my brush, which is kind of fun to kind of watch them all offload in different ways. But we're just going to get that little bit of shadow in there. Just a very light touch to our overall painting, but ooh, a little bit too much white on that one. I find that it's these little touches that at the end of your painting you step back and you can really recognize and appreciate. So sometimes we think, oh, this step seems unnecessary, but then when we're all finished and it's all dry and we can really look back and say, yeah, I'm really glad I did that because it made a big difference to my painting. Okay, so now this one's done. You can see I played with it a lot, and that's what you need to do. You need to just keep going until you've got that look that you can appreciate. All right, so then let's go to our last little kid here. We're going to do the same thing. We're just going to add more brown and darken it even more. Okay, so sticking in my skin tone area, and I've just added more and more brown as we go. Okay. Remember that your paint will dry a shade darker on your canvas than what it looks like on your plate. So that will help you kind of gauge when to stop darkening it, okay? So I think this is pretty good. Sometimes though we get on our canvas and we change our mind. So let's just get on here. Yeah, I think this is good here. And we're gonna go around this guy's hairline here, super cute. My brush is seeming, my paint's feeling a lot like Elmer's glue. That's the indication that, okay, I need to add some water to there. So getting kind of sticky. Paint gets thirsty, add water. Okay. So here we go. He's got this fun hair. Lots of wavy curls in there. So fill that in. Right around there. Okay, so brown tends to be a little bit of a shy color. It tends to need lots of layers. So if you are painting along and you think, I want to come back to this and add another layer, you can totally do that, okay? Before I move on though, same thing, I'm gonna go into that brown and I'm gonna add a bit of a shadow around all my little curls in my little ear. Okay, so I'm just getting the corner of my brush there and just adding that little bit of brown to it. Same shade of brown we did over here, but it's coming off differently because our main color is darker. So that's kind of a fun thing to learn. And we're not worrying too much about, again, getting it confused in the hair or anything like that. We know we can come back and we can fix that when we paint into this cute guy's hair. Right now we're just trying to get that main color into his skin and shadow it just right. So again, when it dries, we can say, oh yeah, that is awesome. Go in there a little bit more with that paint. Make sure we've got good coverage. Again, you can paint him and then go back and add another coat of paint if you're feeling like you can still see too much of your canvas. That's not a problem at all. Okay, I'm loving this. We've got our skin tones, so hopefully you're not too scared of doing skin tones now. We were able to get 3 different ones with just 2 colors, so perfect. Let's go ahead and wash our brush out really good. Swish it around my water here. Awesome. I'm going to make sure I tap it on my paper towel or my rag, whatever I have to get that paint off. Let's dive right into the background. I chose a nice bright yellow because this is a happy message and the children are happy hanging out together. So I'm going to do this yellow. And so I've got this right here. It's way too bright for what I'm trying to accomplish though, so I'm going to add quite a bit of white. You can see I pulled a nice chunk of white over, mixing it in there, okay? And now I'm just going to fill in my background. I'm still using the same brush that I've been using this whole time. I haven't switched yet. So we're just going to fill in our background. Mine's a little bit larger if you're painting on a 11 by 14 canvas. My surface is probably a little bit bigger than yours. But same concept, right? Fill in your background with this nice yellow. Anytime you feel like, oh, that's really bright, just add some more white to your brush. You can see it just tones it down a little bit. This is a great time to wrap your painting, so come over and do the edges of your canvas. You can see I moved my brush pretty quickly until I have to get really close to my subject matter. So I'm going to move my brush quick until I have to slow down close to these cute little kids. Okay, brushing back and forth, back and forth. It's okay if some sections are a little bit lighter than others or darker than others. That's called value, and that's awesome. Now that we have the main area filled, I'm going to get close to my little kids here and I'm going to slow down my stroke. Okay, so I just have to slow it down slightly so that I don't get too much paint into them. I especially want to avoid getting it into their cute little faces because we've already filled in those fun skin tones and we don't want to mess with that too much. Okay, so you can see I paint large areas with the flat of my brush. I push all my bristles out like this. Okay, but when I get close to these little sections, I switch to the toe. So we call that the ballerina toe. Maybe boys can't relate too much to that, but it's just switching that brush to stand on its tippy toes rather than flat like that. Let's go over this fun hair right here. Okay, so pretty quick to just kind of fill this in. Now we got to remember this section down here, right, around our banner. Same thing with our banner. We don't want to get yellow into that, to avoid it as much as possible. But we're going to remember that we're going to have some cleanup time at the end of our painting to kind of go around. So again, don't feel overwhelmed or like you've totally failed if you get any yellow into these other sections. Okay, because we can fix things. Awesome. Oh, it's looking so bright and happy. Before I wash the yellow off my brush, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go and just scoop up some white. I really want the kids to be the focus. I want them to be bright and shiny. And so I'm going to take some white and I'm going to go favor that white edge along the kids here. So I'm just going to lighten up the area that's closest to them and just kind of brush it out. See, I come up close and then I kind of feather it out. So we're just going to brighten up those areas. Really fun because it pushes the eye towards the subject matter, which is our little friends here. Our little friends giving us a really positive message as they're hugging the world and holding up this banner. Okay, so lighten up the areas around them a little bit. Come down here even. Pretty quick. You want to work while your paint is nice and wet so that you get a nice blend. But if you spend too much time blending, what will happen is you'll lose the dark. It'll all just kind of turn to light yellow. You won't have the two values on there. So values are just a fancy word for two different shades, light and dark. Oops, got some in my banner there. Okay, so you don't want to blend too much because you don't want to lose that. But I love that. I'm right where I want to be there. Now, here's the tip. We're going right into our globe next, our earth here. And I need to make green, so I'm not even going to wash the yellow out of my brush. Anytime you can avoid washing your brush when you're painting, it's awesome. You just skip a step and you get to mix your colors. So we don't have green on our plate here. We got to make that. So I'm going to scoop up some yellow here, come over to my blue, and it just takes the tiniest amount of blue, guys. You mostly need yellow. See that? Mostly yellow. Let me see if I can kind of turn my plate. There we go. Okay, so mostly yellow. I'm going to scoop up some white. I'm going to leave some dark green, and I'm going to make other super light green, okay? So I want to keep some dark for the shadowing, but I want a nice light green over here, maybe a touch more blue in there. So fun to mix colors. So I think that's a pretty good, maybe a little darker. I think this is a pretty good green here. I've got my lighter green right here and my darker green right next to it. Okay, so we'll take this and let's go over to our maybe a little darker. Sometimes you have to touch your canvas with your brush to know if you're there yet. That's probably it, yeah. So we're gonna go over to the land portion of our earth here. And we're gonna fill it in with this nice limey green. The fun thing about mixing paint colors though is you can make this a dark forest green. You have that freedom because you are making the color. So that's kind of fun. So we're going to come down here and this section portion goes all the way to our banner, and then we've got, got North America here is what we're doing. So Florida's kind of hiding in behind our banner. Okay, I'm just filling this in. We'll come all the way down to our banner as close as we can get without getting paint in our banner. We want to avoid that as much as we can. Okay, perfect. And then we've got this small section over here, so we're gonna fill that in too. Wipe my brush off a little bit. It's getting kind of caked on there with all that paint. So we'll come over here, follow our lines, or maybe we're painting freehand today, which is so fun and brave to do. I like to freehand every once in a while and just kind of go for it. There's a freedom with it that's awesome. Up around there, there we go. Filling that in. Okay. Oh, it's coming together, you guys. Now remember we left some darker green, right? Right here you can see we left a little bit of our dark shade or a dark value. If you want to say fancy art words, you can use value instead of shade. Then people think you're so smart. Here's our darker. I'm going to put some darker on the edge. Same thing we did on the skin tones. Keep that darker edge, and then we're going to follow that dark edge is going to go around the edge of our green here. Really simple touch. Makes a big difference in the end, right? That's what we're learning. Do the small things that seem to be kind of annoying steps. They make a big difference. When we're all said and done and we step back and we go, oh, look, we've got different values and we've got shadows and we've got light. Again, if you're green, green can also be a pretty shy color, so if you're feeling like it didn't really give you good coverage with one coat, just pause the video and do another coat of paint. No big deal. Okay, let's go over to this side. Same thing. It's that dark edge to follow outer portions of our globe. I'm loving this limey color. I think it's so fun. Okay, what you're trying to accomplish here is darker around the edges, lighter in the center. So once you feel like, yep, I totally did that, then you have accomplished what you were going for here. Sometimes you have to go over it a few times to really get that to stand out. I think we're there. Okay, let's go ahead and give our brush a nice wash. Okay, we want to get that green out because we're going to our blue sea next. So really give it a good rinse, okay? Wash it out vigorously is what I like to say. Kind of almost need to do some zigzags on the bottom of our jar. But be nice to your brush always. Don't give it a bad hair day. Wipe all that paint out. The paint likes to hide up here in this metal part, so make sure you wipe that out. And let's go to our sea. So here's our blue. We want to lighten it up. So I'm going to scoop that up, come over to some of my white. My plate always looks really kind of messy, but that's what makes it fun. We're going to do some light blue. Okay, maybe another scoop of blue over here. Mix that together. I just get paint everywhere. All right, let's make sure that none of our green is seeping down from our metal part. We've got that nice blue, and let's start filling in our ocean. Okay, here we go. Oh, look at that. We've got all these warm colors going, and then we add this cool color, and the contrast is just instant. So fun. Okay, let's come up here. You can see I put all that pressure on my brush so that it fans out my bristles, and then I can get a nice clean edge. Okay, super. Same thing down here, pressing. Okay, not worrying too much about my getting too close to stuff. Just kind of reminding myself that I'm going to have a chance at the end to clean up, so I'm not going to worry too much. Right now we're just getting the paint on there. I've got this little bitty section of water here, so you can see I switched to the toe of my brush. Okay, so your brush, even though it's a little bit big, it can get into small sections, so remember that. Okay, before we wash it, we're going to go into white, put a nice chunk of white on there, and then we're going to do white. We're going to do white along the edge. Instead of a darker shade like we've been doing this whole time, we're going to do lighter shade around where the ocean meets the land here. We don't want to take away the land's shadow though, so be careful. Sometimes we press too much and then we lose some of that. Okay, but we want to give that nice light here to our painting. So let's come over and do the same thing on this side. nice and light. If your blue is too wet, give it a minute to dry. It really depends on how much paint you've put down on your canvas. Maybe you need to give it a second. Let's do the same thing up here. You know, obviously you want to blend wet into wet, but sometimes if our paint is too thick, then this step can be really frustrating to get. So make sure that you're not having a battle with your canvas. We want to enjoy it, not get too frustrated. Okay, let's just put a little bit of light right here so we can tell the same story throughout our whole painting. And there we go. Fill it in wherever it needs some extra. Oh my goodness, looky there. Going so well. Let's wash our brush again and let's dive right into our hair. We are just going along so well here. Let's start with our little girl in the center. Okay, she's got some blonde hair going on. So what I want to do, because obviously this yellow is my background, so I don't want to just put that yellow on her hair. You won't see it. So I'm going to move a good couple scoops of that yellow over here. Okay, and I'm actually going to use that brown we've been using a lot. I'm going to add a touch of that brown to it. Okay, kind of funky, but that's what we're going to do. And it gives it more of a golden look to it, okay? And I kind of like that for her. You could do a redhead. You could do a brunette. If this is a self-portrait, you can just do whatever you've got going on. And I'm going to do just a touch of white. That'll help with coverage, okay? So once I've got that in there, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to fill in her hair. It's almost like this mustardy color here. But it's enough of a contrast from the background that you can see it doesn't blend into the background too much, right? That's what we want. So we're going to fill that in. Still using the same brush, friends. If you need to switch, you switch. Because remember, we're all different and our comfort levels are going to be different. So if you're thinking this flat brush is really stressing me out, switch to a smaller flat or round. There's no shame in that, okay? Especially if we're a younger artist, it's a little better for us to have a smaller brush. So you can totally do that. I'm just going to keep going with my flat here. Go around the ears, filling all that in here. Awesome. There's a little tiny section of hair just down here under the ear. Just barely. You might just even use the teeny edge of your brush to get that. Remember, we're going to clean it up in a minute, so breathing. Okay, before I wash my brush again, into that brown. That brown's been a really good friend of ours today. We're going to give a nice dark edge to our cute little girl's blonde hair here. That's going to make it stand out even more from the background. Give just an awesome color up here. Just love this brown. It gets this golden color. So that edge is just going to follow her two little buns here in her hair. Cute little buns. Maybe she's a little ballerina. Wherever your imagination takes you. And then we're going to go all the way around her head here. All the way. Again, I'm going to check the consistency of my paint. I'm adding water anytime it's starting to feel a little bit stiff, okay? Now let's come down into her little bangs and do the same thing. Add that little shadow there. Okay. Just got to go nice and slow with this step so that you don't overpower her little face here. Just nice and easy. But you want that brown to tell the same story around all of her hair here. Go over her little ears. Oh, she is darling. Okay. Rinsing our brush out. You're so close to our little faces. I love when we get to the details here. So rinsing my brush really good. Let's go over to this guy here. We're going to make a nice dark brown. So we've got our light brown right here. I'm just going to add a touch of black to it, okay? So let's get it. Oh, it's all stiff. It's been sitting there a while. So come over to your black. We're going to make a shade of nice, rich, dark brown here. Too much black and you'll lose the brown. So don't get too crazy. Black is super strong. But we've got that nice dark shade of brown here, and we're going to fill in this cute little guy's hair. Okay. You can wrap your canvas here if you need to. Go around the edge. Still haven't washed, or no, I have washed my brush, but I haven't switched brushes. We've been using the same one so far. Coming on the toe of my brush here. Get up in that section. Try your hardest to stick with one brush. It's kind of fun to see how far you can go. Just learning how to hold it a certain way makes all the difference. It's fun to see how much we can use one brush for. At least it is for me. I say that all the time, and I think maybe it's not so fun for others. Okay, same thing, come down here, toe of our brush, come around that little guy's ear. Nice. Looking good. I've been telling you this the whole time, but just a reminder, if you are not getting the coverage I am on your canvas, don't be afraid to pause this and add additional coats of paint, okay? It's totally fine. All right, so let's come down here and we'll give this little section. I'm actually gonna switch brushes now. Look at me, that one's a little too tight for me. I'm gonna go to a detail, okay? Get it into my dark brown paint. And I'm going to put in this little section of hair here. And then over here, we actually covered it, but there's a little section of hair right there as well. Awesome. Look at this, coming along. Okay, back to my flat brush I go. And we've got one more head of hair. This is our darkest hair. But we don't want to just do straight black. I want to add the teeniest bit of white to it, just a little bit. It will make a difference. So almost like a deep, deep charcoal. Okay? And we'll take that and we'll go ahead and fill in this guy's hair. This one's fun. Look, if you just press your brush, just do these little tiny rainbows. Again, wrap your canvas. You can say rainbows, you can say smiley faces and frowny faces. That's how we teach those little brush strokes. These can be little smiley faces. Look how fun that is. I am really loving this piece. Just showcasing all the differences in the world and celebrating that. Okay, here we go. Same thing, come down close to our ear with our little flat brush here. Again, we need to switch, we can do that and not feel weird about it at all. Little ear here. Perfect. Okay, before I wash it, I'm going to do some highlights here. I'm going to get some white on the edge. I'm going to come around these and look at this. This will just brighten this right up. How fun, right? You can choose some to be in the foreground, some to be in the background, just kind of however you choose to do it. And we'll do the same thing on these little ones. Brightens it up here. Super fun. Let's try and get this one with just the edge of our brush. That's kind of tricky, huh? Awesome. Oh, I'm loving this. Let's wash our brush out. Swish it around really good. Make sure it's nice and clean. I'm just going to dip the edge of it into white. I'm going to highlight our little girl's cute buns up here in her hair. Just kind of like, whoop, half circle. Okay, and then right over the top like that. Let's go over to this guy here and give him a few highlights. We'll just go right there. Maybe we'll put a little bit of that brown on our brush so that it gives a nice blend. And then just a corner of white. Yeah, that's better. So just put that dark on there, little corner of white on our brush here. And then get that nice and highlighted there. Awesome. Just brightens them up. The light is shining down on them. Washy washy. Okay, let's put our eyes in. Super easy. Don't be intimidated by this. We're going to use the bottom of our paintbrush, dip it in our black paint till we get a nice chocolate chip. And then we're going to put these eyeballs in. They're pretty far apart. Okay, so that's what you want. One here. Then we'll do one over here. You can kind of swish your little brush around if you need to get a nice circle there. Nice dot. There we go. Then we'll come to our cute little girl right here, do the same thing. Dot, and then far apart, right? Kind of swirl that around a little bit. Try and get them close to the same size eyeball, right? That's the goal. Okay, and this little guy here, one there, and then one over here. And just kind of give it a little bit of a swirl if you need to. Awesome. Let's go over here and just give this guy a little more of a swirl. Just like that. Okay, looking good. Let's kind of cover up some of the brown we got in our earth here. Sometimes your elbow or your little fist will get into that. That's okay. Can put a few layers on there if it won't go away the first time. Okay, awesome. Time to do our detail work. So let's bust out our detail brush and thin out our black paint. Dip it in water, swish it around in our black paint, do it again and again until your black paint is nice and thin for you, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna help everything stand out a little bit more, and the trick is I want nice thin paint, right? Let's start with this guy right here. We're just gonna kind of meet his little ear right there, and we're just gonna come around just like that, okay? Same thing, meet his little ear, come around like that. Okay, then we're going to give each ear just a little bit of a detail here, just like that. And before we move on from him, we'll make him happy to be here. Little smile there. Okay, let's move on to a little girl here in the center. Start up here in her cute little buns, all the way around it as best we can, without picking up our brush if we can. That's kind of a trick. If you can help it not picking up your brush, then you'll get a nice circle in there. Okay, come down here, just kind of not all the way through her hair, you can see, but just enough to help it stand out. Same thing up there. And then right here, do the same thing. Kind of start a little bit in her bun and then come out a little bit, just like that. All right, now you got a kind of tricky part is going up and down each of these little triangles. They can be a little bit tricky. If your paint is nice and thin though, you'll be able to do it no problem. So check on that as often as you need to. And really our lines are all about the consistency of our paint. We want to make sure it's nice and thin so that it just glides on the canvas. Okay, same thing with her. We want to put some little detail in her ears, so just kind of little detail there, and then let's give her a little bit of a smile too. She is happy to be here as well. All right, we've got our last little guy here. Let's go around this nice dark brown hair, just like that. And then we'll go around his ear, up here, come around, and down this way. Now, if you are feeling a little bit intimidated doing all these lines, you can totally skip it. You stick to what you know and what you're comfortable with. And that's different for all of us. He needs a little smile too, so let's give him a smile. Super cute. Okay. Let's make sure our paint's nice and thin one more time with our water before we kind of work on our globe here. Let's go around our globe. And sometimes you can just skip a line like that because it's really hard to keep a steady hand with a circle. So if you feel the need to just kind of pop off every once in a while, just do that, no problem. All the way down, just like that. Come into our little earth and water separation here. And just see how it's almost like I'm doing this with a pen or a pencil. And that's because my paint is thin enough that it's allowing me to do that. So that's really, really important. Okay. Let's go around our cute little banner that's got our special phrase on it that speaks to us. Right around here, like that. Oh my goodness. Looking fab. Okay, let's come up here and go across our banner as far as we can go, and then we'll take a break here. Just pull your brush off so you can leave a little indent there. Totally fine. That kind of takes the pressure off. I'll finish this globe right there. Loving this. Okay, here we go. Here we go with our words. We're going to just kind of write in the special phrase that we put in earlier. Minus kindness begins with me. We just use that really diluted paint in our little brush to just follow our pencil mark as best we can. This is your message. This is your painting. So this can be your handwriting as it should be. Okay, this is what you're trying to say with the painting. So don't feel like, oh my gosh, I hate my handwriting. I don't want to do my handwriting. Remember, this is your message. So you just own it. Light pressure. If your phrase is short, you can make thicker brush strokes. Maybe your saying is just love. Maybe you're just putting love right in the middle. You know, you can do big, thick words, but if you're trying to do a longer phrase like this, probably want to focus on thin lines, and that just means less pressure with your brush. Don't push too hard. Okay, just gently meet the canvas with your brush with not too much pressure. Sweet. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. We just need to highlight our eyes. So let's flip our brush over, dip it in our white paint until we have a nice dot there. Then we can come over to our little eyes and just give them a little touch of light. You can see right away that it really brightens them up. You don't want it to be the same size, obviously, as your eyes, so be careful not to do too big of a dot. And there you go, you guys. We did it together. There were lots of steps, lots of color mixing. I hope that you enjoyed it and learned something new today. Let's go ahead and sign our name. Let's see, I'm gonna do it in black. I think I'll do it right here. Own your work, you guys. Sign your name. Be proud of it. Hang it somewhere as a reminder to you to be kind to everybody. And I hope to paint with you again soon. Bye-bye, guys.